We needed to bring to the poverty debate a much better understanding of the role forests play in, if not poverty reduction, in increasing livelihood resilience. Traditionally, I think conservation thought about protected areas, and then after a bit it thought about protected areas and the little buffer zone around. But we're moving beyond that now, and we're thinking about what we call a landscape, which is a whole much larger area in which different kinds of land use take place in a mosaic. So you've got possibly a protected area, you've got some forest, you've got farms, you might have rivers or lakes. We're looking at how you trade off different kinds of land use so that we get some of the conservation we need as IUCN, but we also care about the people who live in the landscape and don't just see them as a nuisance to be got out of the way from the biodiversity point of view. The way we've talked about landscapes inside LLS is we say there's the physical terrain, there's the people, but there's a third aspect of landscapes as well, and that is under what conditions can those two be brought together. So you've got to understand law, policy, local custom, a whole set of things that either enable or stop local people from using the natural resources around them. And I think that's a step forward. In the past, people thought if there's people, if there's natural resources, they'll kind of muddle through, and they didn't think that equally important is where's the nearest market. That'll have a big impact on how people use natural resources. Is the road network right outside the door, or is it 50 miles away, as it is in some areas? All those things shape how humans choose to use the landscape. There's a really important spatial dimension to poverty, that if you live near a road and near a market, the way you sort of spread your bets over the year will involve quite a lot of selling of the food you grow and selling of things you gather from the forest to the market, and you'll probably find opportunities for wage labouring as well. If you're a 15-kilometre walk from a road like that, you're obviously not going to go to market very often because you don't have anything worth the trouble of lugging that far. So your forest dependence is much higher. You'll use a much wider range of forest things for your own subsistence. You'll probably hunt more. You'll consume more of the agricultural crops you grow than you bother to lug off to market to sell. And so that spatial dependence on forests is what we've been trying to capture. You can't just think about forest without thinking about agriculture simultaneously. From the point of view of local people, the trade-off between the two is this decision they're making every day of the year, and we need to understand that. There's been a debate for some while about the contribution of forests to poverty reduction, and the general view from economists has been, I'd say, a bit sneery, saying, well, you know, these sort of tuppenny-halfpenny little non-timber forest products that people sell, they really make only minute amounts of money. Nobody's going to get out of poverty that way. We can't see that there's an argument for protecting forests from that point of view. What we've discovered in LLS is that though it's true that the sort of cash values of forests to local people are pretty modest, that's only like maybe 1/5 of what they're getting from forests, and 4/5 of what they get from forest goes straight into consumption in the household and never goes through the cash nexus at all. And that 4/5 has been completely invisible because it's not very easily measurable. And so it's been set aside and not thought about. Though when you come onto issues like RED projects, where you might be wanting to pay people not to use forest, that 4/5 non-cash component is going to be incredibly important for people to understand. So we're looking at ways of making sure that governments now collect that data so that they'll understand more in the future what people forego if you stop them from using forest. It's clear that women use forests much more than men do in most places. Not everywhere, but in most places they're more important to women and they're more important to poor men. Rich men have got other ways of making money and are less interested in forests. The big exception is in dryland areas where the main store of wealth is cattle, as in the Sahel. and is in parts of Nepal. And there, the forest has a huge value to wealthy men because much of the cattle fodder is coming from the forest. And so basically when you look at a cow in a Sahelian country, you're looking at a non-timber forest product.